Welcome. This is May 21st, I believe. This is a level 1 to 3, 90-minute class. The theme is, it's the journey, not the destination. Come to a comfortable seat. On a support. Lift your sit bones, move them back in order to free your breath. Breath awareness is maybe the one of the best, one of the easiest, one of the most immediately accessible ways to become more present in the here and now, which is another way of saying emphasizing the journey over the destination, right? Because the journey is happening right here, right now, which is why it's important. The destination is somewhere in some fictitious future, which is why it's not important. Because it can't really affect our well-being right now. But what we choose to do right now can affect our well-being. In fact, is the only thing that really can. So, breath awareness means you have to be present in this moment in time, which means you can't be off daydreaming quite so much. Breath awareness then also allows you to notice when your breath is compromised, which in turn then allows you to free your breath. And when your breath becomes more free, your ability to be present in this moment in time goes up, because when this moment in time feels good, you're more interested in being present for it. And the best way to make this moment feel good is to enjoy your breath. Close your eyes, tune into your breath. Slow it down, smooth it out. And then if we coordinate our movements with the breath, not just coordinate them with the breath, but actually figure out how to move from the breath, how to let the movements of the breath ripple out into bigger body movements, then our movement becomes more enjoyable, which again helps us become present in this moment in time. But it also, then our movement redirects us back to the breath. We have to, in order for movement and breath to be part of one action, we have to tune into them. It doesn't happen automatically for most of us. And that's fine. It doesn't have to happen automatically, because the fact that it requires our awareness is a big part of why it's so beneficial. With your next inhale, float your arms out and up. That arm movement emerging from a deep inhale, and then exhale your hands to your heart. Let's begin with one Om. Take a slow, delicious inhale. Inhale, expand. Exhale, bow. Lower your hands to your thighs. Relax the back of your neck. Inhale, float your head back up. Float your eyes open. Come into table. Spread your fingers. Begin with a couple rounds of in and out of spiral. Inhale, tilt your tailbone up. Notice how that arches your lower back. And then on the out breath, do outer spiral, which scoops the tailbone towards the floor and rounds the lower back. Inhale, inner spiral, tilt. Out breath, out of spiral, scoop, and round. And then transition to cat-cow, still starting at the tailbone, inhaling, tilting the tailbone up, arching the lower back, then the middle back, then the upper back, and finally the neck. Exhale, scoop the tailbone round the lower back, middle back, upper back, neck. When you move from the inside out, when you make your movements more sequential, it gets easier to notice that that's not how we usually move. We move from the periphery and we move whatever body parts move with the greatest ease, move those more, and we pretty much ignore moving what doesn't move with ease. So as you arch into cow pose here, notice whether you're skipping the back bending in the upper back. And as you come into cat pose, notice whether you're overdoing the rounding in the upper back. Your upper back rounds with ease and it back bends with quite a lot of resistance. Or maybe it doesn't back bend at all because you have forgotten how to fire the right synapses and those muscles have gotten very weak, and maybe you have hyperkyphosis, and that's making it that much harder to move in the opposite direction. But learning to move again in the opposite direction, learning to arch that upper back is really the only thing that will stop your hyperkyphosis, stop it from getting worse, and can actually reverse it. Okay, back to table. Inhale, your left leg up behind you, just to horizontal. And then on the next inhale, float your right arm up, soften the back of the neck. Are you looking forward at that right hand? If so, you're too concerned about the destination. Relax the back of the neck. Optionally bend the knee, hold on to the outer ankle, press the ankle into the hand, and again, sort of float up into a gentle back bend. And release. Inhale the right leg up, energize that leg, float the left arm up, soften the back of the neck. Breathe, free your breath. Optionally add the back bend. Still moving from the inside out. Head still floating up last. Again, are you looking at the ceiling? If so, you're too concerned with the destination, which, and the reason that's a problem is because it distracts you from the journey. It distracts you from this moment in time. That's why it's a problem. Curl your toes under. Walk your feet forward towards your hands. Relax into a standing forward bend, holding on to the opposite elbows instead of reaching for the floor, because whenever we reach for something, inhale, float up from the inside out without reaching for the ceiling. Exhale, swim home. The act of reaching is the result of focusing on a destination. And so again, the act of reaching, even though it's happening in the here and now, by definition, is taking you outside of yourself. Yeah? And taking you away from the breath, taking you away from your center. And in fact, whenever you reach for something, whether it's with your hands or with your chin or your gaze, you're compromising your breath. And so you are setting up a pattern in which it becomes more interesting to escape this moment in time, because this moment in time kind of sucks, because you've reached and compromised your breath in the process. Top of the mat. Put one hand on your breastbone, one hand on your belly button. Observe the movements of the breath. Feel your breastbone lift. As you inhale, feel it settle back down as you exhale. Once you can feel that movement without your hands in place, let them dangle. And still bring your awareness to the movement of the breastbone as a side effect of your breath. Deepen the breath some more. Allow the movements of the breath to become a little bit more exaggerated, to ripple out as the breastbone lifts on the inhale. Notice your collarbones broadening. Another way to increase the volume of your rib cage. And as that happens, notice that your arms begin to rotate out and maybe float up a little bit. Begin to direct the last portion of each inhale into the back ribs, inflating the back ribs, spreading your wings. And notice how that action quite automatically floats your arms up higher. One more deep inhale. Letting that movement ripple out until the arms float out and up. I don't care how high. Exhale, forward bend. Again, holding on to the opposite elbows instead of reaching for the floor. Inhale, float back up. No reaching. Exhale, swim home. Do your movements finish before the corresponding breath? If so, slow down your movements more. Otherwise, they're racing ahead to some kind of destination, usually the next pose, right? Inhale, halfway up, floating up on the breath, head floats up, last back, the next stays long. No need to look forward. That just compromises your breath. Exhale, forward bend. Inhale, float up. From the inside out. Exhale, swim home. Notice how good it feels to slow everything down, to move from the center, to move from the breath, to emphasize the journey over the destination. Because even if this makes sense to you theoretically, that the journey is more important than the destination, as we practice yoga, the poses that have names, right, become little mini destinations, and we tend to rush towards them, discounting, ignoring the moments we spent in transition, so that we can have maybe one moment of awareness when we are in the pose that has a name, right? And then we lose the awareness again as we rush to the next pose. So Richard Freeman's solution to this is to say that there are thousands of yoga poses that just don't have names yet. Every shape you make, transitioning from one pose to another, is another yoga pose worthy of your full awareness. Okay, so instead of thinking of sun salutations as a series of poses, can you begin to think of it as one continuous movement? Because if you do, if you can, then it will be easier to be aware for each moment in that sequence, not just the ones that have fancy Sanskrit names. Exhale into Tadasana. Inhale, breastbone floats up, collarbones broaden, arms rotate out, wings spread, arms float up. Exhale, forward bend. Inhale, halfway up. Floating up on the breath, floating up to free the breath. Exhale, left leg steps back, high lunge or low lunge. Inhale, your hands to your hips. And then let's stay in this pose for a few breaths, but don't hold the pose. Keep pulsing with the breath. Allow the movements of the breath to ripple out. Use those movements to free the breath more. Last inhale, float your arms up and back a little bit if you like. Exhale, plank. Chaturanga, knees down first. So you can let your chaturanga take as long as a full exhale. Inhale, cobra. Again, let that transition into cobra take as long as a full inhale and let it emerge from the center. Exhale, downward dog. Add an extra breath. And downward dog, using it to free your breath. Inhale your left leg up behind you, lift your inner thigh. Can you let this movement take as long as a full inhale? Exhale the foot forward, coming onto the fingertips of the left hand there at the last split second, so that you don't have to rush the stepping forward. Float up into high lunge, pulse with the breath. Last inhale, float your arms out and up. Exhale, step forward. Relax the back of your neck. Inhale, float up. Exhale, swim home. Take an extra breath. So for the next sequence, I want you to notice which movements you're rushing, which movements finish before the corresponding breath. And so the swimming home is a clear candidate. The lifting the leg up behind you in downward dog to prepare for stepping forward is another huge candidate. Coming halfway up from Uttanasana. No. But just observe your patterns and then bring more awareness to those transitions and see if you can slow them down too. There's no reason at all. So some of the movements we rush the most, There's no physical reason to do that. They're not hard movements. This is not hard, right? It's a bit harder to do it slowly than fast. And so notice this. So if you're attached to this idea that moving faster is more advanced, requires more strength, it doesn't. It's easier. Moving slower is harder. So if you want a harder practice, slow it down. But it will also become a more mindful practice. And that's part of why it's so powerful. Top of the mat. Exhale into Tadasana. Inhale, begin again. Again, observe which movements are faster than their corresponding breath, and then slow them down. Exhale, forward bend. Inhale, float halfway up. Exhale, step the right leg back. Inhale up, arms out in front. Exhale, tone the lower belly, draw energy from the fingertips into the shoulder sockets. Inhale, lengthen through the crown of the head. Exhale, twist from the right hip to the left shoulder blade. Squeeze the air out. Inhale, back out of the twist a little bit. Exhale, squeeze. And if you notice that you finished a movement too early, you can just keep it going. You can probably find a way to just move a little bit farther, not necessarily the periphery, but somewhere in the core. Just last exhale. Inhale back to center. Slowly touch hands. Exhale, vinyasa. Try it with the knees off the floor. See if you can still slow it down so that it takes as long as the corresponding exhale. Inhale, cobra from the inside out. Exhale, downward dog. Take an extra breath. Free your breath. Tune into your breath. Enjoy your breath. Inhale your right leg up behind you. Can you do this slowly? Exhale the foot forward. Stepping forward is hard to do slow, admittedly, but lifting the leg up behind you, there's no physical reason why that can't be done. Exhale, tone the lower belly. Oops, arms out in front. Inhale, lengthen through the crown of the head. Exhale, twist to the right. Inhale, back out of the twist so you can take a deep inhale. Exhale, deepen the twist. Inhale, back off. Pulsing with the breath. So when you stay in a pose, you can still emphasize the journey by keeping some kind of movement going to help you stay present in the pose. Exhale, step forward, relax the back of your neck. Inhale up. Exhale, swim home. Take an extra breath. Now, if you've noticed that your breaths finish before your movements, then don't speed your movements up, rather slow your breath down. And how do you do that? Through Ujjayi. So pretend you're fogging up something, feel the constriction in your throat, and then maintain that constriction, but breathe in and out through the nose. Put a block near the front right corner of your mat. Exhale into Tadasana. Breastbone settles. Inhale, breastbone floats up. Collarbones broaden. Arms rotate out. Wings spread. Arms float up. As a side effect of a deep and delicious breath. Exhale, forward bend. Inhale, take a deep, delicious breath. And notice how your body has to float up. Your spine becomes more neutral. Exhale, left leg steps back. Trikonasana. Come into the pose however you like. And then lengthen the right side body. Free your breath. Add a louder spiral to the front leg. Any adjustment that helps free your breath is a useful adjustment. And making these adjustments, again, is a way to compel yourself to become more present in the here and now. Explore each pose. Don't feel like you're stuck in a particular shape. Don't feel like, oh, this pose is perfect. I don't need to be adjusting anything. Keep playing, moving from the breath. Let the inhale ripple out. Notice how that changes the feeling of the pose. Let the exhale ripple out and notice how that affects the pose. And then if you want to transition, left hand to the left hip, bend the right knee, right hand to the block, lift the back heel. Again, no momentum. Inhale, use the strength of your right leg and the strength, the power generated from a deep, delicious inhale to take you forward into half moon. Free your breath. Savor each breath. Optionally, add a back bend. Still savoring each breath. Release the foot. Gaze at the floor. Exhale, bend the right knee. Lower your center of gravity. Inhale, float back. Trikonasana, one breath. Exhale, Vinyasa. Maybe put the knees down first again. Keep comparing. Inhale, Cobra from the inside out. Nice and slow. Head floats up last. Exhale, Downward Dog. Take an extra breath. Inhale your left leg up, nice and slow. Exhale the foot forward. To the center line of the mat, bring the block over to the left front corner of your mat. Inhale, Trikonasana. Floating up from down below or flowing down from above, your choice. And then free your breath. Pulse with the breath. Explore the pose. Immerse yourself in it. Again, it's easier to do that if there is an ongoing movement, an ongoing change, because it's much easier to notice a change than to notice something that is unchanging. Transition to half moon if you like. Right hand to the hip, bend the left knee, left hand to the block, lift the back heel, wait for your exhale to finish. Inhale. No momentum. Float forward on the breath. Free your breath so you can enjoy your breath, so that it becomes more tempting to stay present in the here and now. Add the back bend if you like, or skip it. Doesn't matter. Right? If that matters to you, you're too concerned about destinations. Exhale, bend the right knee. Inhale, float back to Trikonasana. Exhale, step forward. Inhale, float up. Exhale, swim home. Close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Right? The real work of yoga is not a back bend in half moon. The real work of yoga is tuning into this moment in time, regardless of what you're doing. And so if you're obsessing over the fact that the back bend isn't possible, or every time you try the back bend in half moon, you fall over, you're getting distracted from what is really important. Now, if you falling over isn't the problem, getting obsessed over your inability to stay there is the problem. If you can fall over and enjoy your smile and enjoy your breath while you're falling, then mission accomplished. Top of the mat. Lift your toes, spread them, extend them forward. Exhale, breastbone settles. Inhale, breastbone floats up. Arms float out and up. Exhale, forward bend. Inhale, halfway up. In order to free the breath. Looking forward does not free the breath. Exhale the right leg back, warrior one. Keep some space between the feet side to side. Inhale up. Exhale, bend the front knee, tone the lower belly. Inhale, roll the right hip forward a little bit. Eventually float your arms up, but keep freeing the breath. Notice that reaching for the ceiling does not free your breath. That means it's not a helpful detail. If you want to transition to Warrior 3, on the exhale, bring your belly down on the front thigh, all the way down. Put the block kind of near the center of the mat. Wait for the exhale to finish, lift the back heel, and again, no momentum, just power forward on the inhale. Warrior 3, lower the right hip a little bit, energize the right leg, float the breastbone away from the belly button, lengthen the back of the neck. It's perfectly okay to do this on the diagonal like I'm doing. That keeps the hamstring stretch reasonable. And then release the right hand to the block if you like, and inhale, add a revolved half moon. And very optionally, add a revolved half moon back bend. Release the foot, back to revolved half moon. Exhale the left arm down. Inhale back up to Warrior 3. Exhale, bend the left knee. Inhale, float the right leg back. Warrior 1. Exhale, Vinyasa. Move the block out of the way. Let your chaturanga take as long as a full exhale. If that is really hard, and it is, inhale, Cobra. Then put your knees down first when you chaturanga. One extra breath. In downward dog. Inhale your right leg up slowly. Exhale the foot forward slowly. Turn the left toes out. Inhale up, Warrior 1. Tone the lower belly. Bend the front knee. Inhale, roll the left hip forward. Shift the weight more into the outer edge of the back foot. Next, inhale, float your arms out and up. Either stay here or transition to Warrior 3. Bring the block back, front, center of the mat. Inhale, float forward, Warrior 3. Free your breath. Optionally, release the left hand to the block. Let the right arm dangle. Inhale the right shoulder up, followed by the arm. Revolved half moon. Optionally, grab the ankle. Come into a gentle back bend. Release the ankle back to revolved half moon. Exhale the right arm down. Powerful inhale. Allows you to lift the left hand off the block. Back to Warrior 3. Exhale, bend the right knee. Inhale, float the left leg back. Warrior 1. Exhale, step forward. Relax the back of your neck. Inhale, float up. Exhale, swim home. Close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Come out of Ujjayi now. Soften the breath, slow it down. Catch your breath. Come into squat. Turn your feet out. Widen them, bring your hands to your heart. Notice how much you're compromising your breath in the probably relatively successful attempt to minimize the hip stretch. And free your breath. Notice that even though the hip stretch intensifies when you free your breath here, the pose doesn't feel more awful. It feels better. And that means your ability to be present in this moment in time has just increased. Because it's much easier to be present in a pleasant moment than it is to be present in an awful one. And so breath awareness and freeing the breath become a self-reinforcing positive cycle. Stay in squat or transition to crow. And again, notice how you get obsessed over crow. Like, can you get your feet off the floor? That's what matters, right? It doesn't. It's just one minor detail. Can you enjoy the process of moving forward even if your feet don't leave the ground? Can you enjoy the process of moving back onto your feet? Inhale. Let the inhale take you forward into crow. Keep your elbows bent. Relax the back of the neck. With bent elbows, this pose requires very, very little power. You transition to headstand if you like, releasing the crown of the head down. And I need to, it's borderline for my left shoulder, but if I just slow down enough and recruit enough back strength, then I can come up while keeping my shoulder safe. Are you enjoying your breaths in headstand? If not, why even go there? And back down to crow. Nice and slow. Inhale, float the head back up off the floor. Nice and slow. Without momentum. Exhale back into squat. Because if you create momentum to lift the head off the floor, you'll probably fall right back onto your feet. You won't be able to maintain that second crow. Free your breath in squat. And again, if crow and headstand here aren't really accessible for you, are you happy enjoying your breath in squat instead? Because that's the obvious option. Sitting here in squat thinking, oh, I wish I could do crow, that's not helpful, because that's valuing the destination, which is out of reach in this case, over the journey. So I'm a big fan of moving partially into poses. Like, even if you can't balance in crow, to set up for crow and to just shift more and more of your weight into your hands, maybe 50%, maybe 80%, maybe 90, maybe 99. That means your toes are still on the floor, because it's the journey that matters more. But again, staying in squat and enjoying squat and not getting distracted by the crow that's not happening, that's just as powerful. Okay. Plant your right foot on the floor. Bring your left shin across the right thigh. Exhale, rotate the knee away from you. Inhale, back off. Ankle bone is on the outside of the right thigh to keep your knee safe. Toes are flexed towards the knee. If you want, lift the right foot off the floor and keep this movement going, this pulsation from the breath. Exhaling, rotating the knee away. Inhaling, bringing it closer. Release the left foot down to the floor. Bring the right shin across. Again, pulsing with the breath. Lift the left foot off the floor for a slightly different stretch. Interlace the hands behind the left thigh and keep pulsing with the breath. Slowing your movements down, smoothing them out. And release both feet to the floor. Rest for a moment, observing your breath. Gentle belly breaths. And roll up to sitting. Cross your ankles. Press the hands into the floor and step back into a downward dog. Free your breath through more neutral hips and a more neutral spine. Inhale your left leg up behind you, lift your inner thigh. Exhale the left knee towards the left wrist for pigeon prep. Slide your hips back, walk your hands in. If your hips are really far off the ground, you may want to put a block or a cushion under the left hip. Pulse with the breath. If you want, on an inhale, float your arms up. In order to do that and not collapse into the pose, you're really going to have to engage your lower belly and your pelvic floor. Release the hands back down. If you want, bring the shin more parallel with the front of the mat for a deeper hip stretch. And if that's too deep, then don't go there. Add a forward bend. But if you want to play around with Ekapada Galavasana, which we did, I think, last week, come back up and place your elbows, resting them against the left shin. And for that to be not awkward and terribly asymmetrical, the shin has to be more or less parallel with the front of the mat. So that's one reason, and probably pretty much the only reason why putting the shin parallel with the front of the mat is interesting, because it aids this particular pose. If you're not interested in this pose, then you don't probably need that hip range of motion for anything else. Imagine yourself standing on your hands with your shin resting on your upper arms. Inhale, you come back up onto your hands, curl the right toes under, exhale back to a downward dog. Inhale the right leg up behind you, lift your inner thigh, keep your hips level, exhale the knee towards the wrist. Slide the hips back to deepen the hip stretch. Walk your hands in. Deepen the back bend. Tone the lower belly. Inhale, float your breastbone up. Maybe lift the arms as you send energy out through the crown of the head. Exhale the hands back to the floor. Maybe move the foot further forward, maybe not. Surrender into the forward bend. And then optionally walk the hands back in, place the elbows against the front of the shin. And again, for that, it really helps for the shin to be parallel to the front of the mat, but it's otherwise not important. Free your breath. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself standing on your hands. Inhale, walk the hands back in. Curl the left toes under. Exhale back to downward dog. Grab a strap. Have a strap handy. Downward dog. Inhale your left leg up, lift to the inner thigh. Keep the hips level. Let that movement take as long as a full inhale. Exhale the knee to the wrist. Send the hips back to deepen the opening. Walk your hands in. Now, bend the right knee. Support yourself on your left hand. Bring the right hand to the right foot. And bring the heel forward and down. Roll the right hip forward. Feel the stretch. If this is awkward for you, you can do the same thing in Sphinx. And then if you want, bring the toes into the inner elbow. Inhale the left arm up, lengthen through the crown of the head, tone the lower belly, engage your pelvic floor. Maybe hook fingers. Maybe not. But what's more important than whether you're hooking your fingers is whether you are enjoying your breath. And if you can enjoy your breath with your fingers not hooked, and you lose the joy of the breath when you hook your fingers, then hooking your fingers is a really dumb idea, because it's taking you out of the journey to some destination that you think is important when it isn't. And then come back out, curl the toes under, downward dog. Free your breath in downward dog. Inhale your right leg up, lift through the inner thigh. Do that slowly. Exhale the right knee to the right wrist. Send the hips back. Walk your hands in. Bend the left knee. Make sure it's not drifting out to the side. Hug the midline with that left knee. Bend the knee. Hold on to the foot. And exhale. Bring the heel forward and down. Pulse with the breath. Enjoy each breath. If your shin is diagonal, front shin, then extend the ankle. Don't flex the foot. Then optionally, bring the foot into the inner elbow. Exhale, tone your core. Inhale, lengthen to the crown of the head. Float the right arm up. Maybe hook, maybe not. Notice if one side is harder than the other. For me, this side is harder today. But I can still breathe if I just hook one finger, the longest one, and release. Downward dog and child. And this thing, learning to back off when you notice you've gone so far that you can no longer enjoy your breath, is maybe one of the most powerful things you can learn in yoga. It's really hard because it means disarming your ego. But of course, disarming your ego is the real lesson here. Because your ego isn't really interested in the journey, in the here and now. Your ego is interested in destinations, in accomplishments. And that's why your ego isn't such a great tool for well-being, because it's constantly leading you down dead ends. It's constantly distracting you from the path that is actually most supportive of your well-being and your happiness. Okay, I'm going to do one more pigeon variation with the strap, if you like, or return to any of the versions we've already done. Repetition is a good thing. Within reason. Twice is it's not too many reps, right? Okay, from downward dog, inhale your left leg up behind you, lift your inner thigh, let that movement take as long as a full inhale. Exhale the knee to the wrist, slide your hips back, bend the right knee, take the strap around the ankle, bring the strap forward. Lift the other hand off the floor. Exhale, engage your lower belly and your pelvic floor. Send energy out to the crown of the head. Lift out of your hip girdle, then walk your hands along the strap. Flex the right toe so the strap doesn't fall off, and then pause. Can you still breathe? Okay, good. If not, just make the strap a little bit longer. And then exhale, tone the lower belly. Inhale, lift the breastbone away from the belly button. And then exhale, maybe shorten the strap a little bit more. Stay long through the back of the neck. Are you still enjoying your breath? Good. If not, back off. And release. It's the journey, not the destination, that has the power to transform our lives. Inhale your right leg up behind you in downward dog. Let that movement take as long as a full inhale. Exhale the knee forward towards the right wrist. Wait a minute. Did I just do that side? I think I did. Do whichever side you haven't done. So much for awareness. Yep. I did the wrong side. Doesn't matter as long as you also do the other side. So wrap the strap around the ankle. And I know that's a little tricky. You could kind of roll onto the hip of the front leg, and then you can probably reach the ankle, like I'm doing right now. Yeah. And then once the strap is around the ankle, roll the hip of the back leg down towards the floor again to sort of find your way back into pitch. And then again, bring the elbows forward, bring the strap forward, roll the right hip forward, exhale, tone your lower belly, tone your pelvic floor, and walk the hands along the strap. And I think I actually did this side. Anyway, you can check the video. Savor each breath. Inhale, lengthen, make space for your breath. Not only because that allows you to enjoy your breath more, but notice that when you do that, when you actually lengthen the spine, exhale, downward dog or straight to child, even though in that moment, when you're lengthening up into the crown of the head, and that feels like it's almost the opposite direction of where you want to go. You want to go back and down. When you do go up first, lengthening the spine, then your ability to go back and down actually increases because you have made more space between the vertebrae, which means you can actually then back bend a little bit farther. If you're jamming up those intervertebral joints, you can't go any farther. So the irony of all this is that focusing on the journey, letting go of this idea that you want to reach any kind of destination, actually often helps you get closer to your destination. Whereas just obsessing over getting closer to the destination actually keeps you away from it. And we'll do another example of that later on. But Ekapada Rajakapotasana is a good example of that, right? We want to go straight down, and it doesn't work. We got to go up in order to go back and down. Okay. Here's your chance for another back bend. And I'll give you a couple very different options, both involving the wall, though. If you want to play around more with this sort of pigeon problem, you can do it at the wall, increase the quad stretch that really limits the movement, and keep playing around with this idea of lifting yourself out of your hips, actually getting taller, to notice that if you elongate the spine, it can actually back bend with less resistance. So come to the wall and table. If your mat is thin or not very cushy, if you can compress it completely between two fingers, then fold the mat over a couple of times to have enough cushioning for your knee. Step the right knee back all the way to the wall, or not quite, up to you. But having the knee a little farther away makes the stretch a little bit less strong. And then step the left foot forward under the left knee. Inhale the hands to the left knee. Exhale, send your hips towards the wall. If you run into your heel, move your hips forward, move the right heel out to the side a little bit, and then move back. And then put your hands on your hips and notice how much you're dropping the right hip to, again, probably quite successfully, or maybe not, avoid the stretch in the outer quad. If you lower that left hip, notice how much the stretch in the outer right quad gets dialed up. Then exhale the hands forward and down to the floor. Turn the left foot and the left knee out. Sink the hips forward and maybe come down onto your elbows or maybe even your forehead. But again, don't reach. Reaching just compromises your breath. It feels awful and it causes you to become even more distracted from the here and now. Walk the hands back up, hug the left knee into the midline, bring the hands to the left knee. Exhale, send the hips forward while keeping your torso upright. Exhale, tone the lower belly. Inhale, lengthen the breastbone away from the belly button. Exhale, tone the lower belly as you sink the hips forward. Hands to your heart. Inhale. Breastbone floats up, away from the belly button. Exhale, tone the lower belly. Inhale, arms float up, touch the wall maybe. Exhale, tone the lower belly button. The lower belly. Inhale, float the breastbone away from the belly button. Lift up. And then exhale, surrender back and down. Keep the back of the neck long. Enjoy your breath. And release. Step the left foot back first to bring the left knee down. Then step the right knee forward to bring the right foot down. Then step the left knee back to bring the left foot up the wall. Then step the right foot forward. Inhale your hands to the right knee. Exhale, move the hips back. If you run into your heel, move forward. Move the foot out to the side. Exhale towards the wall. Again, you don't have to get all the way to the wall. It's actually a rather extreme place to be. Again, notice getting distracted by the destination. It's not about getting to the wall. It's about getting a good stretch. And most people get a good stretch way before they ever get to the wall. Right? The wall is not important. It's somewhat supportive. So there's something nice about the wall in that sense. Lower the right hip to stop avoiding the outer quad stretch. Release the hands to the floor. Sink your hips forward. Turn the right knee and the right toes out so that you're not pinching in the front of the hip joint, which is not a good idea. Lower down. Again, not obsessing over the floor. The floor is the distraction, the destination. That doesn't matter. What matters is, can you get a good stretch here? Inhale, walk the hands back, hug the right knee into the midline, hands to the front knee. Exhale, send the hips forward and down. Tone the lower belly. Inhale, float the breastbone away from the belly button. Exhale, tone the lower belly. Hands to your heart. Inhale, lengthen the front of the torso. Exhale, engage your core. Inhale, float the arms up to the wall. Exhale, tone the lower belly. Inhale, float up one more time, quite dramatically before you release down. Tune into your breath. Are you still enjoying your breath? If you can't, maybe you've gone too far. Don't sacrifice the breath for some silly destination. Come out and rest in child. Again, notice how tempting it is to do that. How we do this all the time. How we sacrifice the breath in order to reach some external destination that just seems so important to our poor little ego. And we don't want to be mean to it. Okay, one last back bend. If you feel like you've worked hard enough, you're feeling exhausted, then this is probably not a good time to do this because it's an inversion and you want to feel strong and in control when you're doing inversions. So other option is legs up the wall, lie on your back. If you want to turn into a bit of a back bend, put blocks under your sacrum and maybe your lower back so that your upper back is rolling off the blocks. But alternatively, you can kick up into a handstand, or forearm balance, or do a back bend in handstand or forearm balance. If you want to do a back bend, you can't be right at the wall because you need room to complete the back bend. So for me, the right distance through trial and error is 1 forearm length without the hand between the wall and my fingertips if I'm form balance. So for a handstand, that measurement doesn't work. I would need something longer. Okay, so watch the demo. Start in a nice long dolphin, step 1 foot forward, and then slowly swing the other leg up. Minimum momentum. And then notice that I'm on a diagonal, but I am taking the back bend out. I'm working towards a neutral line that happens to be on the diagonal. And then, so I take out the unintentional back bend, the banana back, and then I create an intentional back bend. Inhale, float the heart forward. And then bend the knees, soften the back of the neck, inhale the heart forward. Enjoy each breath. Soften the back of the neck. And release into child. Again, to me, the more interesting question is not, can I balance in Scorpion, but can I breathe in Scorpion? Because the ego is interested in balancing in Scorpion, but not in breathing. And in order to increase our well-being, we need to disrupt our patterns of habit that are not serving us. And obsessing over destinations is one of those habits that doesn't actually serve our well-being. All right. And then lie down on your back, bring your legs up the wall. And maybe grab a block or two. So you can just put one under your sacrum. But if you want to address hypokyphosis, head forward position. Grab another block. And I'm going to switch them out because the blue one has a much more gentle, comfortable edge. Place that edge just below the bottom tips of the shoulder blades, pressing the feet into the wall to take your torso off the blocks, and then release the torso back onto the blocks. Sacrum on one block, lower back on the other edge of that higher block, the one that's closer to the shoulder blades, edge of that block just below the bottom tips of the shoulder blades, palms facing up. Surrender into the pose. Enjoy each breath. And you probably know this pose as Viparita Karani. But there's another version of this where you don't use a wall, you don't use blocks, you support your hips on your hands, on your palms, elbows on the floor, and your legs are moving towards the feet are moving towards the head so you don't fall. But there's this back bend that you have here too. So if you want to transition to that pose, again, press the heels into the wall to lift your hips so that you can place your hip crests on your hands and then lift your heart. Establish that back bend. Then take one leg off the wall, take the other leg off the wall. Energize the legs, lift your heart. Enjoy each breath. Don't let the front of the chest collapse. And then to come out, bend one knee, bring the foot back to the wall. And I've never done this from the wall. It's so much easier. I mean, it's not a ridiculously hard pose, but coming into it is somewhat awkward. Doing it with the wall like we just did makes it a lot easier. And then one more time, press the feet into the wall so you can take the blocks out, roll down onto your back. Rest here for another breath or two or three. And then bring the knees into the chest. Massage your lower back. And then scoot away from the wall. Come up to sitting. So we'll do another version of that hip opening, that is the hip opening that enables pigeon. It's pretty much the same hip opening that also enables sitting comfortably on the floor. And that's a much better reason to be doing this than pigeon. Bring your left shin across the right thigh, right leg extended along the floor. Roll your hip crest forward, reestablish your lumbar arch. And then if you want, lift the shin off the thigh, holding on to the outer shin with both hands, like this. Or if it's available, placing the heel into the inner elbow and wrapping your arms around the leg. But if that causes you to create a hunchback, then it's not helpful, because you have chosen this hand position over a free and spacious breath, and that's choosing the destination over the journey. So maybe just hold on to the outer shin without clasping your fingers and see if you can free your breath more. That's infinitely more enjoyable and infinitely more beneficial. If you can free the breath while hooking your fingers, then okay, fine. But again, don't let the hand position distract you from your breath. Stay here. If you want to add another variation or two that is seriously challenging, and so you may not want to go there, is to roll down onto your back. And if you're sensible, you will probably switch to the other arm position. Again, so you're not compromising your breath. Because if you can't get your shoulder blades and your head to the floor here, you're compromising your breath, and you're making this pose unnecessarily awful. And one more variation here, preparation for Ekapada Galavasana. Lift your shoulders off the floor so you can place your right upper arm against the, or on the top of the left foot, and then place the left upper arm against the upper shin, pretending to be standing on your hands. This is Ekapada Galavasana, upside down. And at the moment, I don't have the range of motion in my hips to really, or maybe I do, borderline. Can't quite get my shoulders to the floor, even though I can get the head to the floor. So that means I will be compromising my breath somewhat in Ekapada Galavasana. I can't do it with a completely neutral alignment. I just don't have the hip range of motion. Most people don't. And you can see when you look at photos of Ekapada Galavasana, most people have quite a significant flexion in the extended leg, because the hip range of motion isn't sufficient to bring the other leg forward and in towards the chest while bringing the other leg all the way back. Do the other side. Again, several variations. Shin across the thigh, keeping the shin on the thigh, and taking the forward bend out. Lifting the foot, holding onto the outer shin, and freeing the breath. Placing the elbow into the the heel into the inner elbow, clasping fingers, and freeing the breath. So every variation is like, this is the description of the shape plus free the breath. And then optionally roll down, very optional. Again, switching the grip probably to the less ridiculous one. And then maybe noticing whether one side is more open than the other. And That's good to know. And then again, you can place the upper arms against the shin for Ekapada Galavasana. Hook the toes around the upper arm and see if you can release. Shoulder blades down. I got the right shoulder blade down, but not the left. Readjust the connection between the foot and the arm. No, can't quite get that shoulder blade down. But my breath is reasonably free. And release. Now, notice as well that even when your breath is somewhat compromised, it's still possible to enjoy the breath. It's just harder. And you can't enjoy it quite as much. But so if you feel like, well, I can't uncompromise my breath. My breath is just compromised in this pose. There are two options for you. One is to have the good sense to back off and do an easier variation so you can really unobstruct the breath. But learning to enjoy the breath even when it's obstructed is also a powerful practice. Whereas suffering through an obstructed breath is not a powerful practice. It's not something we need to practice. Right? I need to practice how to disrupt suffering, not how to put ourselves into suffering. And chasing after destinations is one of the ways in which we keep putting ourselves into situations of suffering. Okay. Let's end with a seaward forward bend and a pranayama. Baddha Konasana. Again, start with a neutral spine. Actually, arch that lower back. You can use your hands and arms for leverage, holding onto the shins. Roll your hip crests forward. Notice how that frees your breath as compared to this much more common variation. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's good. So start with a neutral spine. Lengthen through the crown of your head. Exhale, forward bend. Oh, I promised another experiment about chasing destinations. So maybe we'll do that instead of pranayama. Pulse with the breath. Dramatically change the pose based on the breath. Inhaling, rolling the hip crest forward, lengthening the front of the torso, lengthening the back of the neck. Freeing the breath, and then as you exhale, surrender forward without compromising the breath. Again, don't obsess over the floor. If you do, all you will do is avoid the stretch so that you can get the head a little bit farther, or the chin right now, by over-rounding the back and overstretching your upper back and increasing your hunchback. But that will never help you in the long run deepen this pose, because what you really need to stretch is your hips, and you're currently avoiding doing that so that you can go farther right now. So in other words, going farther right now, it doesn't help you go farther in the long run. Wanting to go farther doesn't actually help you to go farther. And so one more experiment along those lines. Lift the knee. So come back up, lift the knees, extend your right leg out in front, bend the left knee, press the left foot into the floor. Left hand into the floor behind you. Inhale, lengthen through the crown of your head. You can float your right arm up too, but that's optional. And then exhale, twist to the left, wrapping the right arm around the left leg. Notice that you're probably looking where you want to go. Do that for now. Right? That's the destination is more important than the journey approach to this pose. So let's go with that for a moment. Look where you want to go. Look over your left shoulder, and then go as far as you can, and convince yourself that you cannot possibly go any farther. And then inhale, turn your head, just your head, towards the right, looking towards the right foot. And while looking towards the right foot, on your next exhale, deepen the twist in the torso, and notice that you actually can go farther, twist deeper, if you're not obsessing over the destination, if you're not looking where you want to go. So the irony here is that focusing on the journey and forgetting about the destination actually helps you reach certain destinations, though that's still a minor detail. That's still not the point. Yeah, but that might convince you to really let go, because there's always somebody who's still convinced. But in order to get stronger, I need to work harder. Yeah, but you need to work harder where you're weak, not where you're already strong. And if you're always reaching for destinations, that wanting to go farther right now compels you to ignore your weak muscles, compels you to throw all your power at the muscles that can convert it into the biggest movement right now. But those are not the ones holding you back. And other side, right hand to the floor, inhale, lengthen to the crown of the head, exhale. Wrap the arm around the leg. Look where you want to go. Look into the twist. Take a few breaths. Convince yourself that you really cannot twist any farther. Then on an inhale, turn your head towards the left foot. Gaze towards the left foot. Exhale. Deepen the twist in the torso quite dramatically, and then let the head fall. Moving from the inside out simply works better. Not only can you breathe better when you move that way, but you can actually go farther. One more time. But the breathing better is actually more important. Come into Dandasana, press the fingers into the floor. Bring your breath. And we started actually a few minutes late, so we'll finish a few minutes late. So we actually do still have time for Nadi Shodhana. Come onto a cushion or a block. If you have extra blocks, grab 2 more. Adjust your hips into a more neutral position. And again, for most people, a support under the sit-bones helps with that, which is why the support is useful. Use the other 2 blocks to support your right elbow. Adjust the height of that support so that your fingers, middle and index fingers, fall naturally to your third eye when your spine is upright and your breath is spacious. Gaze forward, don't turn the head to the right. Bring the right hand in towards the midline instead. Close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Notice how you feel. One more exhale through both nostrils. At the end of that exhale, close the left nostril with your ring finger and inhale slowly smoothly to the right. Exhale left, closing the right nostril with your thumb, opening the left nostril, exhaling slowly, smoothly, deeply. Inhale through the left nostril. And switch sides, exhale right. So the pattern is when you get to the end of an inhale, switch sides. When you get to the end of an exhale, don't switch sides. That, just slow down the breath more and more. Count it if you like. All right. And again, the point isn't to set a new world record in how long you can make your breath before you pass out, but rather noticing that the breath slows down quite automatically when you do this. Just do it gently, without a goal in mind. Simply enjoying the journey. It's a much more transformative thing than chasing after destinations. starting to exhale through the right nostril. At the end of that exhale, release the hand from the nose. Release the blocks from your thigh. Place your right hand and your left hand in your lap, palms facing up. Tune into your breath. Observe your breath. Free your breath so you can enjoy your breath. Notice how you feel right now. And either stay in seated meditation, or if you prefer, roll down onto your back for Shavasana. Or do any Shavasana variations you enjoy. If your mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. If your mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. Savor each breath. Again, noticing your mind wandering off is not a failure, it's a success. Because you've just noticed that your mind has wandered off. So you have already stopped the wandering. Bring your mind back to the breath and enjoy your breath. Again, a destination way of thinking about this is that you must never let the mind wander. That's just simply not possible. And it's also, because it's mostly not possible, not interesting, because it distracts you from what you can actually do reliably, which is notice when your mind has wandered off and bring it back without getting pissed off, without losing your sense of joy. Savor each breath. The journey is more important than the destination. Savoring each breath is maybe the most direct way to put that into practice. In order to enjoy your breath, you have to be aware of your breath. Being aware of your breath means you're present in this moment in time. And then adding that sense of joy makes that awareness more powerful, more beneficial. Move your fingers, move your toes. Slowly find your way back onto one side or the other, rolling down onto one side and staying there for a breath or two. Or three. Again, noticing the desire to obsess over a destination arising and then disrupting it gently, simply with a joy in the here and now, enjoying your breath in this moment in time. And then slowly find your way back to a seated pose. Tune into your breath. Align your hips and your spine to help free your breath. Inhale, float your arms out and up. Exhale your hands to your heart. Let's end with one Om. Take a slow, delicious inhale. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. Thank you for practicing with me. I hope you have a wonderful day.